Today, we're taking a deep dive into a story that's got everyone in Hollywood buzzing.
And definitely one of those situations that just keeps getting more complex as more details emerge.
Right. Our listener wrote in asking for the full picture on the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni lawsuit. I think, everyone knows it ends with us, the book.
Oh, yeah, huge bestseller, right. And a movie deal with two of Hollywood's biggest names attached.
Exactly. Lively and Baldoni, set to star in the film adaptation. But things went south, and now it's a full-blown legal battle.
Yeah, this isn't just your typical contract dispute or creative differences. Things have escalated way beyond that.
So let's back up a bit, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. What was the initial plan for this movie, and how did it all fall apart?
Well, it ends with us. The book itself deals with some pretty heavy themes, domestic violence being a big one. So you can imagine that adapting it for the screen would come with, well, a lot of sensitivity.
I mean, yeah, it's a really powerful story that resonated with millions of readers. But how did that translate to this legal mess?
Right. So back in January 2025, a New York district court attempted to mediate the dispute.
Okay, so trying to get them to settle outside of a full-blown trial.
Exactly. Mediation, it's often a way for parties to find some, middle ground.
To avoid airing all the dirty laundry in public, I guess. So, did they reach a settlement?
No, not at all. Both Lively and Baldoni's legal teams, they completely rejected the mediation. In fact, they stated in legal documents that they had good cause to do so.
Good cause. What does that even mean in this context?
Well, good cause, in legal terms, suggests that there are very, very strong reasons for not settling. Reasons so serious that they basically make it impossible to even consider a compromise at this point.
So there's something big brewing beneath the surface here.
It certainly seems that way.
Especially because, we know Lively's planning to file an amended complaint. What could be in that complaint that's so significant it stopped mediation in its tracks?
It's hard to say for sure, but to understand why everyone's so focused on this amended complaint, we have to look back at the initial allegations.
The ones that Lively made against Baldoni.
Exactly. She accused him of, a lot. Sexual harassment being a major one, a very serious charge, especially in the post-#MeToo era of Hollywood.
And one that can completely derail a career, really.
Yeah, sure. But that wasn't all. Lively also alleged breach of contract and claimed that Baldoni created a toxic work environment on set.
So multiple accusations, each one with the potential to be incredibly damaging on its own. How has Baldoni responded to these accusations?
He's fighting back, and he's not pulling any punches. Baldoni has countersued Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, wow, bringing Reynolds into this, too.
Yeah, for defamation and extortion. And get this, he's seeking a staggering $400 million in damages.
$400 million. That's a whole other level of legal battle.
Right. It's a huge statement. It's like he's saying, I'm not backing down, and I'm coming for everything.
So just to recap, we have Lively's initial allegations, a failed mediation attempt, and now Baldoni countersuing for an insane amount of money. All before Lively even files her amended complaint. This is getting really intense.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a tangled web, and it'll be interesting to see how it all unravels.
And it's not just the legal stuff, right? What about the impact this is all having on their careers? I mean, It Ends With Us was a massive book. This movie was probably set to be a huge hit.
Oh, absolutely. This case goes way beyond legal outcomes. It's about reputation, careers, everything. Even if one side is found, legally innocent, the court of public opinion can be just as brutal, especially with a case as sensitive as this.
Right, so what's next for this movie adaptation? Is it doomed?
I mean, it's hard to say at this point. Studios, they don't like risk. This level of controversy, it's enough to make any studio think twice, 3 times before going forward.
It's a shame because the book, like we said, touches on some really important issues. It had the potential to reach a lot of people.
It did, and now it's all kind of up in the air, hanging in the balance.
Okay, so that's the current state of play. But this case, it's about more than just Lively and Baldoni, right? There are bigger implications here for Hollywood as a whole.
Oh, definitely. Lots to unpack there.
Exactly, and that's what we'll be diving into when we come back. We'll explore how this case might affect other film productions, especially those dealing with, topics like domestic violence or sexual assault.
And we can't forget the #MeToo movement and how this case might influence that conversation.
Right. There's a lot more to discuss. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and we're really going to dig into what this whole Lively Baldoni situation means for Hollywood.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of people in the industry nervous, to be honest.
Because of the potential fallout. Like, will studios be less likely to greenlight films that deal with sensitive topics now? I mean, take domestic violence, for example, a really important issue.
It would be a shame if those stories just, disappeared from the screen because studios got scared of lawsuits.
Exactly. It's like, what message does that send?
Yeah.
That these stories aren't worth telling?
And it sets a dangerous precedent. Studios, they are businesses at the end of the day, and if they start seeing a pattern of legal battles coming from films that tackle these, tough subjects, they're going to be much more cautious.
So it's not just about it ends with us anymore. It's a potential ripple effect across the whole industry.
Exactly. And it's not just the studios either. Think about the actors.
You're right. I mean, who wants to get caught in a legal mess like this?
Right. They have their careers to think about, their reputations.
Especially when you're dealing with something as serious as sexual harassment or a toxic work environment.
And the public scrutiny that comes with it, it's a lot to handle.
Okay, so before we go too far down that road, let's break down some of the legal terms that keep coming up. Defamation, for example. What exactly does that mean in a legal sense?
So defamation, basically, it's when you harm someone's reputation by saying things about them that aren't true.
And in this case, Baldoni is saying that Lively and Reynolds did that to him.
Exactly, and he's saying they did it intentionally to damage his career and reputation.
And then there's extortion, which is a whole other ballgame, right?
Extortion is basically using threats to get something from someone, usually money.
Like a blackmail kind of thing.
Right. In this case, Baldoni's claiming that Lively and Reynolds tried to extort a huge sum of money from him.
So these are some pretty serious accusations flying back and forth.
Yeah.
But we also have to talk about the hashtag #MeToo movement, because it feels like this case is playing out against that backdrop.
Yeah. The hashtag #MeToo movement has really shaken up Hollywood, and for the better, I think. It's exposed so much abuse that was just, swept under the rug for years.
But there's also this tension, right, between believing victims and making sure everyone gets a fair hearing.
Exactly. We can't forget that everyone deserves due process, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty.
It's a delicate balance.
Right.
And this case really brings that to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you think this case will impact the ongoing hashtag #MeToo conversation, especially with such high-profile people involved?
I think everyone's watching this case very closely, both people who support the movement and those who criticize it. And the outcome, it could have a big impact on how future cases are handled, how studios respond to these kinds of allegations.
And how actors behave on set, maybe. Will this make everyone more cautious, less willing to take risks?
It's possible. This case has the potential to shift the power dynamics in Hollywood.
It seems like Hollywood is being forced to confront some really uncomfortable truths about itself. Do you think any real lasting change will come out of this?
I think it has to. We need more than just words. We need action. And one thing that could come out of this is more emphasis on, clear communication and transparency right from the start of a project.
You're talking about like making sure everyone's on the same page from day one, having clear guidelines for handling any kind of, inappropriate behavior.
Exactly. Not just having policies, but creating a culture where everyone feels safe to speak up, a culture of respect.
So it's about more than just protecting individuals. It's about changing the whole system.
Right. It's about creating a work environment that is truly inclusive, equitable, where everyone feels valued and respected.
What about things like, those inclusion writers we keep hearing about? Could those help? For our listener, can you explain what an inclusion writer is and how it might be relevant here?
Sure. An inclusion writer, it's basically a clause that actors and filmmakers can put into their contracts that guarantees a certain level of diversity in the cast and crew.
So it's like saying, if you want me in this movie, you have to make sure the team reflects the real world.
Exactly. The idea is that a more diverse and inclusive set will naturally be less prone to, harassment and abuse of power.
It's about spreading the power around, making sure everyone has a voice.
Right. And there's also been talk of setting up independent organizations to investigate these kinds of claims rather than leaving it to the studios to police themselves.
Because there's always that concern about, studios protecting their own interests.
Exactly. Having a neutral third party would give everyone more confidence that things will be handled fairly.
So there's a lot of potential for positive change, but also a lot of uncertainty. What should we be watching for as this case unfolds? What are the key things to keep in mind?
Well, first of all, this case is far from over. We've got the amended complaint coming, Baldoni's response to that, and the possibility of a trial down the road. There's still a lot that could happen.
It's like we're in the middle of a legal thriller, just waiting for the next plot twist.
And second, this case really shows just how complicated power dynamics can be and how difficult it can be to address these issues, especially in a place like Hollywood.
Where there's so much at stake, so much money and fame involved.
Right. And finally, I think this case reminds us that everyone deserves a fair hearing, a chance to tell their side of the story. We need to let the legal process play out and let the truth come to light, whatever that truth may be.
I agree. It's important to be patient and let the facts guide us, not just our emotions or our assumptions.
Absolutely. This case raises a lot of important questions that go beyond Hollywood, questions about power, accountability, and justice. And these are questions that we all need to be thinking about.
All right, so we're back. And we've been deep in the weeds of this Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni legal situation. What a mess, huh?
It's really a fascinating case, from a legal perspective. So many layers, and we still don't have all the answers.
Right. We've talked about the accusations, the countersuit, the whole Hollywood context.
Yeah.
But where do we go from here? What are the next steps, legally speaking?
Well, the big one, everyone's waiting to see what's in Lively's amended complaint. I mean, that's clearly the bombshell that blew up the mediation talks.
So new evidence, new accusations. What do you think it could be?
It's anyone's guess, really. More witnesses, deeper details about the alleged harassment, or maybe she's going in a whole new direction with the accusations.
But like a legal cliffhanger. But it's not just the courtroom, is it? This whole thing is playing out very publicly, and people are definitely taking sides.
Oh yeah, social media is on fire with this one. It's really a prime example of how public opinion gets shaped online. Hashtags, campaigns, everyone's got an opinion.
And it gets pretty heated sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Does all that online stuff affect the actual legal proceedings?
It can, definitely. Public pressure can be a good thing. It can force people in power to, take these things seriously.
So it can hold people accountable, even if the legal system doesn't always get it right.
Right. But it can also create this kind of mob mentality, rush to judgment before all the facts are out there. And that can be dangerous.
Yeah, it's like everyone's playing judge and jury online.
And it's a good reminder for all of us to, take a step back and remember that there's always more to the story than we see on the surface.
Be skeptical, look at all sides, don't just jump on the bandwagon.
Exactly. This case, it's complex, and we need to let the legal process do its work.
So for our listener, who's clearly been following all the twists and turns, what are the big takeaways here? What should we be paying attention to as this thing moves forward?
Well, first, remember, this case is far from over. There's a lot more to come, and it could go in any direction. Second, this case really highlights how messy these situations can get, especially in Hollywood with all the power and money involved.
And the egos, right?
Oh, absolutely. And finally, I think it all comes back to fairness. Everyone deserves a fair hearing, a chance to present their side of the story, and that's what we need to focus on, letting the truth come out, whatever that truth may be.
So, to our listener, stay informed, stay engaged, keep those critical thinking skills sharp. This case is a reminder that these issues, they're not just Hollywood problems, they're everywhere.
Absolutely.
Right.
Power, accountability, justice, these are things that affect all of us. And it's up to all of us to make sure the system works the way it's supposed to.
Well said. That's all the time we have for today, but thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, keep those minds open.